How's it going, y'all? It's your boy Raymond back up in here with another video, and today we're going to be diving into some more music stuff. And today, I know I said I was going to get around to it in the Black MIDI video, but here I am. School just started, so give me a little bit of a break, but we're going to be catching up on some stuff. Today, we're going to be starting with a band who you may not have heard of before, but I'm assuming that most of you who are watching this probably have. And that is Magdalena Bay, and we're going to be talking about their new album, Imaginal disc. So if you're unfamiliar, Magdalena Bay, they're like an LA-based pop group, like indie group. They've been making music for a little while now and have been getting some traction online, especially. A lot of their rise, if you do know of them, probably came from a lot of their TikTok success or their social media success. Their single Kill Shot is like easily their most well-known song and easily their most streamed song as well. I think that one blew up on TikTok, like I think at some point during COVID or maybe even like a little bit before that as well. They've done a really great job at being able to promote their music and put it out on like social media platforms, and they've been getting a lot of buzz just because they have this very almost nostalgic 90s, like early 2000s bubblegum pop aesthetic, at least with a lot of the stuff that they had been putting out early on in their discography. Obviously, that sort of snowballed into their release of Mercurial World, which came out I think like 2 or 3 years ago now. And so Mercurial World was one of my favorite albums from 2021 when that came out. And I think I even made like a video on it or something. I'm pretty sure their aesthetic back then was definitely going for something that was a lot more in the bubblegum pop realm. They definitely take a lot of their influences from that sort of, late 90s, like early 2000s, synth pop, bubblegum pop, Britney Spears-esque, sort of style, I guess you could say. A lot of their music video, a lot of their art, a lot of the stuff surrounding the music itself, a lot of the worlds that they create tend to lend themselves a lot more to like a PC music aesthetic, which I think is really interesting. And it's a great combination of those two kinds of sounds and those two different eras. And they're really making it their own. And they're adding like a little bit of that indie pop influence as well, and just experimenting and really creating these really cool worlds that surround not just the albums but their music videos, like the art design that they do at their shows as well as in their promotional stuff too is just really cool, and it's really enveloping. And them as an artist, it's really rare that you see a lot of these pop stars that really make the album experience like a whole experience other than just the music itself. And I think to see them doing it, not like such a huge mainstream level, but to really them doing it themselves, I think is really cool as well. Their YouTube channel, they do a ton of these behind the scenes videos of them sort of going through their production and them going through like their different songs and how they produce them and what sounds they use, etc., etc. So they're just really an all-encompassing band, and I think they're extremely accessible too for like an audience that is interested in that kind of sound and that is interested in being involved in almost like the creative process and getting like deep insight. So they're super cool, and I really love them for that. So obviously Mercurial World came out, that was back in 2021, and since then they've put out like a couple mixtapes and some singles leading up to this other project. It had been a little bit of a longer wait than I was expecting, but with the material that we got on this new album, Imaginal disc, I'm pleased to say that honestly I think it was worth the wait. Some of the singles that initially came out, like Death and Romance, Images, those were really singles. When they first came out, I was floored by them, honestly. Like, they were super fun to listen to, and I was hoping that after the success of Mercurial World and after they had really sort of built up this like bubblegum pop aesthetic, that maybe on like the next album they would possibly try to expand and maybe try mixing in like other genres and not just sticking in this bubblegum pop lane, because there were flashes in a lot of their previous mixtapes and EPs and even in Mercurial World where there's like this interesting almost like proggy dark wave kind of influence and like this PC music influence as well, mixed with like indie rock and just a lot of these other influences that, were sprinkled in here or there in the previous album, and I would have liked to see them do that on this new album. And I think that's why I like this new project so much, is because, it feels like a fully fledged idea, and the whole album has so many different sounds going for it, and just such a crazy mix of genres that are going into it. For instance, the song Death and Romance, which I mentioned earlier, is like this 4 to 5 minute, huge like song that feels a lot more like an indie rock track, but you have like these really nice, strong drums that feel a lot more reminiscent of like a Tame Impala. There's great synths and there's great keys, like all over this thing, like the piano parts and like the synth chords just flourish like all over this album. But on Death and Romance specifically, that was like our first taste of the album, and that song specifically just has like some great keys, some great chord choices, just a great beat in general. And Micah just sounds like amazing just through like the entire thing, and I think her singing really does shine a lot more on this album specifically. I think her voice on Mercurial World more so adds to the aesthetic that they were building on the album, but this album to me feels a little bit more personal, and like the vision that they had for it seems a lot more balanced. Not to say that Mercurial World wasn't, but I think that album specifically just had a very specific vision of what it wanted to go for, and it was a lot more of a conceptual album than this one is, and I think that's probably why I like this one just like a little bit more. Images is just like this very stereotypical, like it is a Magdalena Bay song, these driving rhythm drums that feel a little bit synth poppy, a little bit disco, kind of a little bit new wave, and I really like that. And it's got like this really nice synth harmonizer. What's like that thing that you play with like your hand, and it's got like this, it's like that thing from that thing that like plays in Star Trek or something, where you like play it with your hand or so. I don't even remember the freaking name of it. I'll probably put it up on the screen in post. That thing, I think that's what that is during like the chorus, and it sounds super freaking cool. That was sort of like the single where I was like, okay, they're gonna take their previous style and they're going to run with it, and they're going to expand on their sound, which I think was really cool. And then songs like That's My Floor came out as well, which is almost just like a straight up Tame Impala inspired indie rock banger. The guitars sound so crunchy and they're so fuzzy, like all over that song. And there's like really, really interesting sound choices on that song as well that make the song just feel like really crunchy and kind of nostalgic. I think the other thing that really helped with them sort of expanding their sound going into this project is really after the success of Mercurial World, they got like some band members, they got a drummer who tours with them full time, and they probably got like some other musicians in the mix as well, so that they could create this fuller sound that sounds a lot more like a full band, instead of just like the two of them sort of trying to interweave a lot of these different elements together that maybe wouldn't be able to translate in a live setting without a band. Now that they have like more tools and more resources, you can definitely hear that in the final product. Going through, I guess you could say this one does have like this interesting world enveloping concept. There's always some sort of concept going into a Magdalena Bay project. And this one specifically is sort of having to do with being, I guess, transported into this like 90s, early 2000s like world where there's like literally a CD being inserted in her head on the album cover. So, the imagery is pretty clear. Mika's writing on this album is probably one of the more interesting ones where it really tends to shine. She writes these like really interesting love songs that are written kind of vaguely and a little bit obscured, and it paints a lot of these really crazy portraits that mix in with the song choices as well, and like the sound choices, especially like in Death and Romance. I mean, even the song title alone just seems like it has this dark edge to it, and she just does a great job of just painting these really crazy pictures that almost feel like Lynchian in itself. And I say that because they are big fans of Lynch. I mean, there's been so many references to Lynch as well. I didn't have the chance to actually meet them when they did their live set at Amoeba. And I did like the album signing and everything. And I actually ended up like mentioning to them that I had literally just seen Wild at Heart like 2 days before the album signing, which was pretty funny. And I was talking to them about Lynch, and then, you know, I was talking to them about how like they love Mulholland Drive so much, which is really cool. And it's really cool to connect with an artist and their different inspirations other than just music related. And I think that was really, really cool. And it definitely bleeds into their music as well, and just their songwriting as well. I guess like some standouts that I had on the album were songs like Death and Romance, Images. I think Angel on a Satellite is great. They played that at the live set, but that was like more of an acoustic version of it. And after hearing the acoustic and also the final version on Spotify, I thought it was fantastic. Cry For Me, it might be like my song of the year. It sounds just absolutely beautiful and also like terrifying at the same time. It kind of reminds me of a lot of the newer stuff that Jessie Ware has been doing with this throwback like tribute to disco style type music, but with this like, you know, 21st century flair. It feels like it's trying to do that aesthetic, but in the Magdalena Bay way, where like there's this dark edge. And by the end of this song, it's going through these different motions of trying to incorporate a lot of these different kinds of sounds. And there's like, you know, you've obviously got like the drums and the bass line, which are locked in, and that's sort of what gives you this disco feel. But then you've also got this string arrangement, which shows up on multiple other tracks on the album too. You've got these insane string arrangements that sound almost haunting and terrifying. And then Mika's like crooning over like the entire track. But then once you get to the second half, after the beat change, you've got like these crazy like chord riffs that are going on top of it with the piano that sound almost like a horror movie. On top of that, you've got Mika, who is, you know, changing pitches. And by the last half, you've got this repetition rhythm for, I guess, the post-chorus, I guess you could say. And the sound of it, like the chords just keep going like up and up and up. I think by like half steps for like the last, you know, minute and a half of the song. And it sounds like the song is going to implode on itself almost, like it's just never going to stop going until the fade out begins. It's just incredible. And I think that song is just so fun to listen to, but also gives you like this full experience at the same time. I don't really have too many issues with the album. I guess some of the things, like I guess the conceptual stuff of it that they've thrown in, like the disc inserted, the interludes, etc. I think they do a decent enough job of painting sort of this world that they're creating. But to me, the real magic of the album is the fact that it feels kind of like a loose concept and that each song seems to stand on its own. Whereas in Mercurial World, that wasn't necessarily the case. Each song felt like it was part of this bigger whole. And in this album, it really feels a lot more like a journey. And each song feels like its own stopping point where you can appreciate each song in its own way. And that could be also just because of like the mix of influences. That could just be of like them really expanding their sound palette on this album. And overall, I think it really works. You know, I think it's just a great project, and I think they did a fantastic job. I'm going to be seeing them live in LA in October, and I'm super excited for that. I did see them live during the Mercurial World tour like a few years ago, and that was a great time as well. But I'm excited to see them with like a full band performing this album specifically. And I think that'll just be a great time, and I'm super excited for that. Initially, I was feeling slightly more lukewarm on the album when it first came out, but after re-listening to it a bunch and after showing it to some of my friends and showing them some of the songs, I really started to fall in love with it a lot more. And I think I'm probably going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. You know, this year hasn't been like super huge in terms of music for me. I haven't listened to a whole lot. I'll probably get to Brat at some point because that deserves its own video. I know I didn't really cover that because I started the channel back up a little bit late, obviously a lot later after that album came out, but I'll probably discuss it when like the remix deluxe whatever album comes out. If you guys haven't checked out the album from Magdalena Bay yet, go check it out. Go check out their music videos, their Instagram. They post stuff like all the time that really just adds to why I love them. Behind the scenes stuff. Their YouTube has a bunch of stuff about their process and about them making the album if you're curious about that. So go check that out. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. I know this video came a little late, but I appreciate you guys sticking around. And be sure to like and subscribe and comment down below with your guys' thoughts on the album, maybe whether you disliked it or whether you loved it like I did. And yeah, that's pretty much it. For the next release, I'll probably end up doing like another album review soon. And there's a lot of film stuff that's going to be coming out soon as well, so I'll probably try to get to that. This summer was a little lukewarm for me in terms of the movies that came out, so I didn't really see a whole lot, but I'll try to figure out something. So yeah, I appreciate you guys for sticking around, and I appreciate you guys for watching the video. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys in the next one.